I'm Barry Rowland and welcome back to the Barron's Lecture Series. As you recall in part one entitled If Democracy is the Aim, Dotmocracy is the Game, was presented in a series of short videos. I've received a number of requests to put the entire production into one full video for those that like to follow things in an inclusive manner. I'm pleased to do that, and it now will follow for your information and review. Should you like what you see, please subscribe and indicate a like. I would certainly appreciate that. My name is Barry the Baron Rowland, and welcome to my YouTube platform and the new Baron's Lecture series. My starting point will be to detail proven strategies and approaches aimed at leaders of education, business organizations, and community groups who are always ahead of the curve and looking for new ideas to help achieve or continue success in their roles. I'm going to call this series If Democracy is the Aim, then Dotmocracy is the Game. Over the next few videos, I will share Dotmocracy in its entirety. The what, the why, the how, and the results. I will detail materials, formats, documents, reports that you will be able to review and download as appropriate. First of all, let me share my background and experience and establish some credibility with you. I have over 50 years in leadership development and strategic planning. I've been a teacher, vice principal, school superintendent, and for the last 25 years, a senior search consultant working with over 200 public, charter, private schools and organizations throughout North America in the area of strategic planning, but most specifically to help them find effective leaders. I've also advised and worked with municipalities, school boards, businesses, union groups, and community organizations. I bring knowledge and worthwhile ideas to the table for consideration. I believe that all of us in leadership positions aim to achieve a culture of democracy when working with a group or an organization or a unit. The key, of course, is how do you make that happen? Specifically, I will show you a simple but dynamic and powerful tool that will provide a leader of a school or educational district, business, community group, or organization with an instrument to ensure that the employees, volunteers, or stakeholders will not only be able to offer ideas, opinions, suggestions on how to make that unit the best it can be, but more importantly, will be totally committed to taking part in making that happen. Because, and this is very important, they have all had an equal opportunity to be heard. In short, a refreshing approach that will produce positive results that many leaders find it difficult to achieve. In the videos that follow, I'm going to stick very closely to the script. This is not the time for edu-speak or voluminous verbiage. It's a time to be clear, concise, and exact with details, so every step of the implementation process is smooth, flawless, transparent, and understandable. Imagine a world where your voice truly matters, where decisions aren't just made behind closed doors, but are shaped by the collective will of the people. That's the essence of Dotmocracy. It's a dynamic approach to decision making that empowers everyone to weigh in on issues that affect their lives. Picture a large board filled with ideas, and each person gets to vote with dots. Simple, visual, and impactful. This method breaks down barriers, encouraging participation from all corners of the community. It's not just about voting, it's about dialogue, collaboration, and transparency. Dotmocracy transforms passive observers into active participants, fostering a sense of ownership and responsibility. In a time when many feel disconnected from any process, this approach revitalizes engagement and ensures that every voice is heard. It's democracy in action where every dot counts, and together we can shape a future that reflects our shared values and aspirations. What I'm going to present in the following videos will be critical if you lead an educational or business organization or department within either of these, a board of trustees, a classroom of kids, a student council, a community group, a congregation of a church, a synagogue, a mosque, a not-for-profit, a sports organization, and are looking to end the frustration and finally discover a dynamic model and approach that will not only maximize feedback from your stakeholders and employees, but obtain their commitment. As you know or can discover, there have been a number of presentations on YouTube channels on the topic of Dotmocracy over the years. For the most part, they follow an identical script. Over the next 4 videos, I will offer a very different take on the concept of Dotmocracy. I will show an actual Dotmocracy workshop format in its entirety with instructions on setting it up and leading the process. I will show how to generate the ideas, suggestions, opinions from the stakeholders as the starting point, not having them respond to ideas generated from some external source. And that's very important. I will show how to maximize the opportunity for all stakeholders to mix with different people during the same session, share their ideas, and listen to what others think, who they may not know or be associated with or be part of their normal work group. I will show templates and documents on how to list the raw data, voting priorities, a full workshop report and health report so that you can generate further feedback, particularly from those unable to attend a workshop or series of workshops. The strategy that I will present in the remaining 4 videos will aim at demonstrating a tool and process designed to engage stakeholders from the beginning in a meaningful way so that future decision-making will be bottom-up and top-down, thereby maximizing commitment. In video 2, we will look at Dotmocracy, the why. Significantly, every school organization, community group, or business I've worked with pose a fundamental question. How do we involve our employees or stakeholders in a meaningful way to maximize support for decision making? Is there a model that works? If you're anything like me, you went through many failed attempts. Typically, I'd set up an open meeting with all of my stakeholders or employees in attendance, generally a room where everyone was there and had an opportunity to speak. Very quickly, it turned into a few people captivating the airtime and most of the audience sitting on their hands. A lot of people with good ideas are not comfortable speaking in a public session, so their opinions and suggestions never get tabled or discussed, even when you hold several similar public forums. The whole thing ends up in frustration. So, in order to at least get something accomplished, you fall into the trap of preparing a document to hand out that has no commitment from those who it will impact. In all likelihood, it will gather a lot of dust, or at the very best, be paid lip service. Let's take a look at what will work in terms of generating maximum interaction and maximum commitment. Dotmocracy, in terms of specifics, is a workshop and is based on the following principles, the why of it. The approach has to be bottom up and top down. Certainly, the leaders have the resources and the opportunity to set up next steps. However, the employees and stakeholders want to be part of the process. Those who are affected by any decision must be part of the decision making, or it's in vain, in my view. And those who are affected by any decision, of course, have to be able to share their ideas, opinions, and suggestions on an equal basis with all other stakeholders. Let's speak to the objectives and outcomes and the whys of Dotmocracy you should expect when you go down this road and set up potential workshops. You can see on the screen the objectives and the information that you glean and should glean from a workshop presentation on Dotmocracy. The first thing is to promote valuable feedback on the present operation. You basically have to know where you are in order to move forward. So, what's the present situation? Secondly, to provide stakeholders with equal opportunity to identify strengths and weaknesses using a balanced and open-end method. And this is key because it will give everyone the opportunity to place on the table their ideas, their suggestions, and their opinions. Thirdly, to gather data that can be used for the development of future goals and objectives. The data will have a positive effect for future planning because it's transparent and it's there and it's not lost. In the fourth point, organize the data into headings. You have to develop a set of themes or directions into which you can place the raw data so that you get a sense of the things that need to be accomplished to achieve success in planning. Finally, you identify areas of strength for growth and change. So, what does exist, and can it be improved? And finally, you raise awareness of the existing strengths and areas for change. The information you should glean from the Dotmocracy workshop or the outcomes will give you a better sense of what you hope to accomplish. You should end up with a detailed report that'll outline the strengths, the areas for growth, the unmet needs, etc. And it should be organized under subheadings, very transparent, and available for everyone to be able to review and offer feedback. You should certainly have increased the awareness of everyone who took part of both strengths and areas for growth within the present program. So some things work well, some things need to be improved, and people need to see that transparently in order to move forward. A collection of raw data from stakeholder groups will give you an idea of the present status. So each group will have different thoughts and opinions once it's sorted out, but it will give you a sense of how they feel things are right now in terms of where you need to improve and where you can hold fast because things are working well. And finally, you'll get an appreciation for the benefits of collecting data. It is very important that people understand that only with data can you move forward and put together a positive response and a positive direction and a positive plan. It has to be gathered from all those who are going to be impacted by decisions, and they have to have the opportunity not only to share those, but also to be part of arriving at those solutions and decision making connected to planning. Video number 3, Dotmocracy, the how. And the how looks at the equipment, materials, documents you'll need to prepare ahead of conducting a Dotmocracy workshop. The first thing you'll need to do is to prepare handouts, gather equipment, identify areas for the work sessions to take place. The following slide will give you a sense of the things that you will need to consider as you prepare to conduct your workshop. The first thing you'll do is to decide on the categories of stakeholders that will be invited to take part in the session. Generally, we talk about internal stakeholders who would be your employees, staff, faculty, admin team, for example, and external stakeholders such as community members who impact on your services, donors, perhaps parents, people who own the facilities that you use, etc. You'd hold separate sessions for each stakeholder group. Remember that in your employee group, the employees will hesitate to present their opinions with the admin team or bosses in the same room. So it's very important that each group, because they'll have different suggestions and information, should be done separately. You can prepare a simple invitation that looks something like what you see before you to send out. It's not a bad idea to ask people to email or phone indicating their intention to attend, to give you a sense of the numbers and an opportunity to prepare worksheets ahead of time. You will need to decide on location to hold the workshop. Although it depends upon numbers, the best places are a cafeteria, gymnasium, auditorium, where there's plenty of space to arrange chairs and tables, and also wall space where flip chart paper can be placed and people can comfortably move from flip chart to flip chart at the end of the workshop. Although you'll see that you should consider an area that can accommodate 18 tables and chairs, that would accommodate 180 participants, it's not likely you'd have that number. You probably need either a 3, 6, or 9 table arrangement with 6 chairs per. In my experience, 50 to 60 participants will give you 90% of what you receive in terms of opinions, ideas, and suggestions that the same group of perhaps 180 people would provide. Remember, at the end of the day, a workshop report can be prepared and circulated to anyone not able to attend a workshop for any reason for any additional feedback. The participant worksheets are the key. You can see them here, and they're needed to be printed ahead of time. You can see there are 3 windows, stop, start, continue, with the appropriate questions. Participants should jot down their ideas, opinions, suggestions under each. It's not necessary to use full sentences since these are worksheets that will not be collected at all. You will also need to prepare some numbers that will be transfixed to the worksheets. You can either write them on or have labels printed that you can purchase at Staples and generate the numbers through a computer program. Simply tear them off and add them to the sheets. And you can see here, number 132 represents table 1, table 3, table 2 would be the rotation for this individual. You also need to prepare cards for each table being used. The number on the table has to correspond with the number on a worksheet, and white items will be listed at that particular table. You can see here, for example, table 1 would be start, 2 would be stop, 3 would be continue. This means that when a participant arrives at one of these tables, the only items that should be considered and listed or added to what's there are identified by the table cards. So only starts with starts, stops with stops, continues with continues. The table identification cards need to be in exact sequence. For example, table 1, 4, 7, and 10 would be starts. 2, 5, 8, 11 would be stops. 3, 6, 9, 12 would be continues. You also have to prepare gum dots and purchase these, as you can see on the screen, ahead of time. They can be purchased at Staples. I'd recommend using one color. They need to be cut into strips of 5 ahead of time and placed in an envelope so they can be handed out to participants at the appropriate time, each participant receiving 5 gum dots. Let's take a look at the labels you will use because they're an important part of the workshop if you intend to use them. You can see here that this particular sheet has numbers 1 to 3, so there'd be 3 tables. Once again, you can purchase blank labels at Staples and then use a computer program that will place the numbers on the sheet. Here's the sheet that would show you what 9 table arrangement would look like and an 18 would look like. On the far right, you can, of the this particular display, you can see the number of people that you can accommodate by tearing off each label from left to right across the page and sticking them on the page. For example, 3 participants, 6 participants, 9 participants, etc. You can also see there are small red numbers beside some labels to help you. If, for example, you had 24 people and wanted to use 6 tables, these are the only labels you would use to make certain that there was an even balance of people at each table. If you wanted to continue with the 6-table arrangement, you'd simply prepare another set of labels and use the red numbers again to accommodate participants. So, for example, the 25th person would be red 1, the 26th would be red 2, the 27th would be red 3, and so on. The reason for using numbers is to make sure that participants go to the 3 rotations with different people. They will communicate with people they may never have associated with before, and perhaps get some ideas from people from a totally different perspective. Alternatively, if you don't want to use numbers, you can simply sit people at tables provided. Make sure they only fill the number of chairs at the table, or they'll need to go to another. Have every table do stops, then post all the flip chart paper on the wall under a stop section. Then have them do starts and post all those flip chart papers under start section. Then have them do continue and post all that flip chart paper under continue. You will find on the screen Dotmocracy, the how in its completion, which is the full workshop that's pretty much self-explanatory in terms of how to set it up. The workshop can be completed in an hour and a half. You can see each slide will give you the complete outline of how it's conducted and how it is completed and what pieces need to be considered. I'd like to make a few relevant points and again repeat some points that I think are very important. The workshop should be held in a large area such as a gymnasium, cafeteria, banquet hall, auditorium, where the appropriate number of tables and chairs can be set up comfortably, and there's wall space to accommodate flip chart paper. Generally speaking, all stakeholders should be invited to take part. If the number makes this difficult, there are several options to be considered, since the final report resulting from the workshop sessions should be available for all stakeholders, whether they attended the workshop or not, to review and offer additional feedback. The ideal number of participants to ensure the maximum information, in my experience, is 54. Essentially, that means 9 tables with 6 chairs at each. Participants who wish to take part can be selected on a first response basis, or their names can be drawn from a generic pool, whatever works. Make sure to reproduce 1 copy of the Stop, Start, Continue response sheet for each stakeholder involved in the process. Allow approximately 15 minutes to complete the Stop, Start, Continue worksheet. Encourage participants to work independently and remind them that these worksheets are simply that and will not be collected. Once it looks like most participants have completed the Stop, Start, Continue worksheet, ask them to move to the table with the first number identified at the top of their worksheet. Participants should be allowed 15 to 20 minutes on the first rotation. Participants should select a scribe in their group to jot down on the flip chart paper each participant's responses. Do not repeat responses. Be sure to write legibly and clearly. Point forms permissible. Add any additional suggestions or comments that arise from the discussion that may not be recorded on independent worksheets. It's important to note that every rotation, the objective is to brainstorm the data, not debate the merits or evaluate what's being suggested by participants. Upon the direction of the workshop leader, participants should move to their second number, which will be their second group, and it'll be identified at the top of their worksheet. Rotate as groups, not individually. So wait till everybody, essentially most people, are finished. Participants should select the scribe, read the comments already recorded on the flip chart paper, then proceed to add any new or explanatory comments. Participants should be allowed 10 to 15 minutes, the second rotation. Upon the direction of the workshop leader, participants should move to the final table, which will be their final number identified at the top of the worksheet page, and you work from left to right on the numbers. Participants should select a scribe, read the comments already recorded on the flip chart paper, then proceed to any new or explanatory comments. Participants should be allowed 10 minutes at the final rotation. Once all the tables have completed their tasks, have the flip chart paper posted on the walls, grouped into stop, start, continue sections. Give each participant 5 gum dots. We spoke about that earlier, to be used to designate priority items. Participants place the dots beside the items they think are most important to them. Make sure the dots are for all the sheets posted. They do not place more than 1 dot per item posted, and certainly they can vote for their own suggestions. If you feel more comfortable not rotating individuals, you can simply place participants at tables and let them complete the stop, start, continue without moving. The flip chart papers can be posted after each section is completed and before the next section starts. There are some important considerations to the workshop. Every participant has the opportunity to jot down their thoughts, opinions, suggestions, and provide those to the groups they're working with. Point 2, there's no debate or evaluation, but simply brainstorming, enlisting ideas, suggestions, opinions, thereby keeping everyone engaged without denigrating their input. Point 3, will provide them with the unique opportunity to interact with individuals who they may not know and listen to what others think in terms of promoting excellence. Next point, having lots to say in a discussion is irrelevant to the final identification of priorities to consider. Every participant receives 5 gum dots. No one gets more, no one gets less. And finally, every participant has the opportunity to identify the priorities independently from the influence or opinion of others. Dotmocracy, the results take the form of 2 extremely important reports that arise from the data gathered during the workshop. The reports are extremely important since they provide stakeholders who are unable to attend the workshop with an opportunity to review the material and offer any further suggestions, ideas, and opinions. The results are really in the form of 2 documents, the workshop report and the workshop health report that I will run through on this particular video. You can see in front of you the sample of the workshop report that starts with an explanation of the sessions and how many people took part, the process that was used, the questions that were used to gather the data from all of the participants, how priorities were identified using 5 colored dots, and the importance of having an open-ended process and being able to take the raw data summaries and to develop a report with collective themes that are clustered around the various suggestions and opinions and votes that were identified. You'll also see here the themes that were able to be developed from this particular session. The first one is leadership, the second one, school, environment, and climate, policy, procedure, operation, organization, program, curriculum, instruction, staffing, professional development, parents and community, discipline, and finance. So these were able to be developed from the data that was collected, and it now puts it in perspective in terms of identifying areas that need to be addressed first and areas that can be held off until perhaps a future opportunity. The suggested use of the data is also identified, And that's where we suggest a health report that really is a way of identifying, using the data, the health of the unit or the business or the school or the community group that took part in the session. And of course, our conclusion as well. You'll see here the raw data. For example, under stop, you can see all of the items that were listed on the flip chart paper on the right and the number of votes or dots that each of these received. So you can see they're identified by the top ones first and then going down the row until there were no votes offered for several of these. You'll also see the start, and this is with the staff. You can see the same thing. You can see the continue, the same thing. You also see the parent summary, and you can see a very different set of suggestions as you would expect. And that's why your group should be done separately. And the number of votes that are offered. There's the parent stop. There's the parent start. And here is the parent continue. As I mentioned earlier, the second document and report that's important is the health report. And here you see an example of that. It basically outlines stop, start, and continue votes and items or suggestions can be translated into graphs. And here you see a kind of an ideal set of responses. You then see the overall data and how it breaks down in terms of the percentage of stops, the percentage of starts, and the continues. And then, of course, you can break it out according to what the staff said, what the parents said, and here's how you do it. You obviously compile the stops, number of votes, the starts, the continues, the totals, and do a percentage mathematically in order to arrive at the appropriate place for the health report. And here it is again, along with the full report written. The report can be shared in its entirety with anyone who could not take part in the session for whatever reason and offer some feedback. Finally, it's important to understand that these documents were developed with a significant input from stakeholders and employees. It certainly can be used to evaluate the progress of a current strategic plan of an organization in terms of whether the objectives of that plan are being accomplished and to what degree. In other words, do they match up with the information gleaned from the workshop data? The report can also be used to start a strategic plan for an organization. So the fact that the data was gathered from employees and stakeholders not only establishes credibility, but most importantly, the commitment and involvement of those people who will be affected by the plan. Any committee set up to evaluate a current strategic plan or to start a new plan should anticipate significant participation from employees or stakeholders, since the assessment of progress or new objectives and directions are based on the information given by those people. So they should want to be part of developing a plan for future success of the organization. The focus reports themselves can be distributed to authorizers, as in the case of some charter schools I work with that seek approval and renewals, or to donors who provide financial assistance to educational units, businesses, or community organization to demonstrate a commitment to an all-inclusive long-range planning initiative, or to agencies that provide grants to support applications for consideration in terms of providing a plan that was developed with major stakeholder and employee input and support. The focus reports can be used to recruit employees, faculty, staff, and board members, since it demonstrates a clear commitment to long-range planning by the entire organization. This completes the series highlighted as Dotmocracy and its role in involving stakeholders in a meaningful way in identifying issues and challenges and participating towards planning for solutions. Should you have any comments or require additional information, contact me at barryroland4@gmail.com. I'll say that again, barryroland4@gmail.com.